the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United
States of America and to the republic
for which
for which it stands,
one
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty
and
and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 3 on the agenda is public participation. At this point, the meeting can be open to any members of the public who wish to be heard on any matters within the board's jurisdiction.
Okay, is there anyone there who would like to speak in participation of the public?
Yeah, Charlie Cradaville here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you. Could you repeat your name for the record, please?
Yes, Charlie Cradaville, Kratovil. A resident of New Brunswick and the editor of New Brunswick Today, a community newspaper here. And I had some questions. I wanted to know, why have the last several board meetings been canceled?
Okay, you could continue.
I was hoping to get an answer to the question, why have the last several board meetings been canceled?
We're gonna give you an answer. You have any further questions?
I'm sorry, you said you will give me an answer?
Yes.
Okay, and at what time will I get that answer?
We're gonna have the attorneys address that. Do you have anything else you would like to discuss?
Yes, I'd like to know why you don't allow people to access these meetings by phone.
Okay. Should be able to access it. We've had people to call in. So I'm not sure about that.
Sure. For the record, I tried to call in today on the line that's advertised, and it said that, you know, this meeting does not allow phone call. So just, you know, I've been to a lot of virtual board meetings, and I've never encountered that. Normally I'd be, you know, talking to you on my telephone here on my desk. Instead, I'm using my mobile phone on the Zoom app. And I'm also using my computer to broadcast this meeting live to our audience. And the reason that I'm taking an interest in the Atlantic City Housing Authority is—
Madam Commissioner, if I can stop him.
Commissioner Dorsey?
Madam Chair, did he just say he's broadcasting our meeting? I think that recording and broadcasting our meeting is not allowed.
Please cite the statute you're referring to.
I'm not speaking to you, sir.
Well, this was my time and you interrupted me.
Host, can we mute the person? Mr. Manfredi, can you confirm?
Yes, Commissioner, the public does have a right under today's laws to broadcast the meeting, as long as that broadcasting does not interfere with the board's discharge of its duties.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
May I continue? May I continue?
Yes, you may continue.
Okay. As I was saying, the reason that I've taken an interest in the Atlantic City Housing Authority is that you have a new interim executive director who also happens to be the New Brunswick Housing Authority's executive director. In fact, Mr. Clark has positions at 5 housing companies. And so I wanted to ask the board whether you knew Mr. Clark had 4 other jobs when you hired him. And I'd like to understand what prompted you to hire him, of all people, to this position.
Okay, well, 1, he's part-time, and 2, as you know, we're regulated by HUD. Everything we do and say, HUD is aware. We have minutes, they approve our agenda, they approve our minutes, and they are aware of everything that we do here at this agency, as well as other agencies throughout the state and the country. Nothing, this isn't a private company, it's a public company and regulated by HUD. And so therefore HUD is aware of everything. They approve our agenda Last 2 months, we've asked HUD to approve several items. There were no items approved by HUD. And so we did not have a meeting, but we're here now. We are meeting. We have a full agenda and all of your questions and about Mr. Clark, HUD is aware of everything and they approve everything. I thank you for logging in. We give the public 3 minutes to speak and your time is up. Thank you very much.
You didn't tell me there was a time.
Yeah, I didn't, but I just did. And that's typical of most meetings where the public is given 3 minutes to speak. So thank you very
You get
much.
5 in New Brunswick. Respectfully, could you give me a contact info so I can follow up since I didn't get to address all my questions? Who should I reach out to?
Mr. Manfredi, would you mind taking this information, please? Do you
Sure.
want to give your information?
Oh, sure. My email address is editor, editor, @newbrunswicktoday.com. And the phone number here, if you prefer to call, is 732-993-9697. And we invite calls from anyone who thinks we should know something.
Thank you, Mr. Credible. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that wish to speak?
Yes, I,
Me too.
Okay, I believe the name is Mike Wallace.
I think I spoke first. I'm Brian Norwood.
Okay, Brian Norwood. Okay, you have the floor.
Okay, my first question is, will we be filling our vacant positions anytime soon? The maintenance vacant positions and the Section 8 positions. And my second question is about the Liberty Group. I know they were brought on to help with the vacant units, but in an email that Mr. Clark sent us yesterday, he stated that they will be helping with general repairs. So I just would like to know how long will they be working as contractors for us, and will we be filling those maintenance positions? And those are my only 2 questions.
Okay, did you speak to Mr. Clark about those?
No, I didn't speak to Mr. Clark about those questions. This just came out yesterday.
Okay, Mr. Manfredi?
Yes, Chair, I was contacted today by CWA union representatives and the same questions were posed to me. And I've been working with Mr. Clark and will provide an answer directly through the union representative whose name is Peter Ciparulo.
Okay.
So, sir,
great.
the questions will be answered through your union representative tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Is there anyone else from the public that wish to speak? Anyone else from the public that wish to speak? One last call. Is there anyone else from the public who wish to speak? Hearing none, we can move the agenda forward.
Thank you, Chair. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the August 11th, 2022 meeting.
Beth, can you mute the other speakers? Beth, is there a way to mute? Thank you. Sorry, Chair.
No, no problem. Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I think there's some inaccuracies in those minutes. Is it possible that we table that, discuss the possible edits, and then bring it back up at the next meeting?
Yeah, you don't want to discuss the questions that you have now?
Not necessarily. I write them down and.
Commissioner Dorsey, I didn't hear you.
Not necessarily. I mean, we need to make edits either way, so.
Okay. All right, we can, whatever questions you have, we can address them. If you don't want to discuss them now, and we can move forward with passing the minutes. All right. Okay, roll call.
Oh, do we have a motion and a second for adoption of the minutes?
Motion, Marshall.
Thank you.
Second, Devenish.
Thank you. And The roll call, Commissioner Devenish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yeah,
Thank you. The minutes are approved by a vote of 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Item 5 on the agenda is reports of board committees.
okay.
Defer to the chair to which sequence the committee report should be heard if there are reports.
Mr. Clark, would you mind going over that, please?
Sure. The executive committee met, I believe 3 times, Chair, to discuss matters involving activities of the board and dialogue with ongoing matters. I don't know if there was I don't believe there was any written report, but I believe they'll be discussing those in a closed session, special meeting to discuss contract and personnel matters at a later date.
Okay. And also the Personnel Committee met?
Correct.
Yeah.
Personnel committee met 1 time, also discussing personnel matters. Those will also be discussed in that special meeting in the closed session with the board.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
If there are no further committee reports, the next item, item number 6 on the agenda, is the treasurer's report.
I don't know, Chair, is that typically done by
Ms. Gordy.
Abdul or Miss
Mm-hmm.
Denise, you want to go ahead?
Yes, good afternoon, all. The treasurer's report has been distributed. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item number 7, the secretary's report.
Ready, Chair?
Yes, Mr. Clark.
Yes, so thank you all for your patience. As many of you may know, my email has been on the fritz. So if you do need to get me something, please get it to Beth Ann. It will be fixed on Tuesday. I wanted to give some updates on some of the items that we're currently working on. As you know, from that designation of the emergency matter, we have been bringing in contractors and working on some specific items, including boiler updates and repairs, pest control, landscaping, a bunch of property issues, as Mr. Manfredi previously mentioned, as well as some security doors, security cameras, and a host of other items. All of those transactions and issues we're going to go over on a contract basis in a special meeting that the chair will be talking about later. But I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board as we go forward. I know there's a lot of items on the agenda, so I wanted to try to keep my comments brief. I do want to thank the staff. We are, as you know, very short-staffed. I believe we're down to 80 employees now out of the 118 or 119 budgeted. And we're going to work to rebuild that staff. As Mr. Manfredi mentioned, we did have some good discussions with the unions and with HUD, both on getting those items out into the public realm and starting to bring on additional people. I did have an excellent meeting today, which I hope to be able to report to the board shortly on the last union. You'll see the 2 union components for this evening are on the agenda. Those cover 3 different areas. The final area, which is the security union, we had a great discussion with today, and I hope that we'll be settling that one out prior to the next meeting. But other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, also, I have authorized John to have a discussion with the Personnel Committee on hiring a full-time executive director. And so the Personnel Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Devenish, if you could coordinate with Mr. Clark to have a committee meeting to move forward so that we can post and advertise for a full-time executive director. That's something that I will want to come out of the personnel committee and how that's going to be handled going forward. So hopefully by the December meeting, we'll have some form of update of what came out of the personnel committee.
Okay, I'll reach out to her tomorrow, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 8, any other business or communications that the commissioners wish to discuss?
Nope, that's it. We can move
See.
forward.
Thank you, Chair. Next, we're on item 9, which is a series of draft resolutions proposed for adoption. These are numbered sequentially 9601-11-22 through 9615-11-22. And with the indulgence of the board, in the interest of saving a few seconds on each of these, I will omit the standard language which says it's a draft of a resolution of the Commissioners of the Housing Authority and Urban Redevelopment Agency of the City of Atlantic City, as they all are resolutions of this board. So with that, the first resolution for consideration, number 9601, is a resolution approving a change order for roof sheathing repair for the rehabilitation of the Busby Homes Rental Assistance Demonstration, parenthetical RAD, parenthetical, project, and authorizing the interim executive director to execute a change order. We have a motion and second for that resolution.
Make a
Motion,
motion to
Tweedle.
table.
I'm sorry, so I have motion.
I made a
Commissioner
motion to
Tweedle?
table.
Oh, motion to table, I'm sorry. Is there a second to Commissioner Dorsey's motion to table? If there is no second, that motion would die for lack of a second. And a motion could be entertained at this point to approve the resolution.
Can we hear why he wants to table it, please?
We need a motion and a second, and then questions can be asked, if I'm correct, counsel.
That is correct, Chair.
Okay, Mrs. Tweedle. do
I'll
you-
motion.
Okay, and I'll second it, Marshall.
Thank you. And the resolution is now open for discussion.
Dorsey, can you share why you would like to, Commissioner Dorsey, why you would like to table, please?
So I find it very irresponsible of us as a board to continue to approve or even consider change orders when they are not only prima facie incorrect, they are not explained. This one, for example, outlines that we are being charged for additional work, but there's no consideration for the work that was already to be done in that place. So I just took a door that was supposed to be replaced and I replaced it with a different door, and I got billed for the whole new door, even though the original door was already in my budget. So when they go spray foam, this is incorrect in change order form anyway, because it should say the change order is to remove line item of the installation that was to be put in place and the value for said, and insert insulation spray foam and the value for said. So we're gonna approve to pay for spray foam when we didn't get a credit for the installation that was gonna be in that place already. That doesn't make sense. On top of that, I have been requesting for 1 year the scope of the budget, the contingency funding, which is in the budget, which they disguisingly put in their package, that there's contingency funding to cover all of this stuff. That's not accurate. They have not shown us one time that the items that they're putting in the change orders are actually considered and that are line items that have already been planned for in our contingency funding. In addition to that, I have asked for The spec sheet that was created before this project was to be developed that already said what work was needed to figure out why so many change orders are brought up for something which is like spray foam, because this building was lower than flood elevation, which clearly should have been an item that everyone knew before this project started. I, as a builder, know that if I get a permit on this property to do this building, then the construction code official says this building's flood elevation is too low, your installation doesn't qualify. You need to correct that normally before your permit's issued. So why are we 9 months into a project and they're telling me that we need to change this because of elevation of the building when it took 5 years to create a development plan to start this project? Whose mistake is this? We don't have to pay for every mistake. If there's an architectural engineering mistake, they have an insurance policy that's called errors and omissions. And their insurance policy pays for that stuff. If the builder made a mistake, errors or omissions, and their policy pays for that. If we just keep carte blanche approving change orders, we're just paying and we don't know why, and nobody cares. I'd like the builder here to ask them if this work was done, because they brought change orders to us before for work that was already done without our approval. And we've tabled change orders 3 months ago, which they've not brought back to this board for consideration when I asked for this same backup documentation. They can't bring that documentation to bring forward the change orders from 3 months ago, but they're going to bring me a bunch of change orders now. I have a problem with that. If we have no checks and balances, then we have nothing here but a rubber stamp. And I refuse to be a rubber stamp.
Okay, Mr. Clark, or
Sure,
Rick-
Chair, I know we have Rick here who has much more history about this going back, and there were some presentations done, so I'm gonna let him chime in real quick, and then I'd be happy to follow up.
The, so, I mean, the first thing I will say is the only change order so far the board has approved is the 3 that were approved in August. They weren't tabled, they were approved. There is, and just as a note, my expectations on a rehab of this extent is we're going to see a bunch more change orders. Some of this work is getting done because it has to get done. And ultimately, in a tax credit transaction, we had a little over $1.5 million in our approved budget right off the bat for change orders, because there was an expectation that the architect didn't know what was behind all the walls. When we go to the roof sheathing, didn't know what was going to be under the roofs when you rip them off. So they sort of build in a contingency to allow for some of these change orders. It is common on these kind of transactions. It's expected with a tax credit transaction. So I think there's going to be a lot more. We could micromanage, to be honest, and disagree on some of these. And we have, if you remember back in, I guess, February or March, I met with board members and walked through the property, and we pushed back on a lot of change orders that were not related to necessity. And we said no. I mean, we just said no. They didn't have to go to the board. We revised and we said no. But the other thing I wanted to say is this is a project. I know the whole board wasn't here the whole time. This was a project that the agreements and paperwork were provided and voted and agreed to. And our development partner is responsible. We don't have a contract with the general contractor. Michael's development organization has the contract with the contractor. And their role in our development agreement is to manage the construction on our behalf, because there's certain time constraints that, quite frankly, have to be met in a tax credit transaction. If they're not met, you lose equity. And if you lose equity, you might win a battle, but you end up losing a lot of money, and it's worse off doing it that way. So generally, these kind of things are handled administratively. It's unusual for change orders on a tax credit project where the housing authority is not hiring the contractor and the money is not coming from the housing authority. It's coming from a project budget. It's unusual. It's usually an administrative function where the board is kept apprised of what's going on and kept apprised on the project budget. and the executive director handles any approval process during that process. I think we got involved in this because we know we've been sort of in an interim state for some time now. And so Mr. Clark, I think, I don't know if you have something to chime in on what I'm saying.
Absolutely. So board and chair, once it's my understanding that the project budget for this transaction was approved by the board. Typically, once that's done, because the authority is not essentially the financial funder of this, the project is, it would be managed either administratively or through a board committee. It doesn't seem like either of those happened here, and then things have gone back on the board standpoint. I understand Commissioner Dorsey's concerns about construction documents and those things. I will make sure that whatever he had previously asked for, he can get. However, on a mod rehab project, it is very common. In fact, that's usually why the project budget has such a healthy contingency. It's because once you start opening walls and tearing out, roofs, you find things that will require action. However, your time frame for delivery doesn't change. So you don't have the convenience of a conventional construction project because you're under certain time constraints. In this case, these items and these orders are essentially typically done through an administrative action or shared with the board committee on a monthly or quarterly basis as the project goes forward. I'd be happy to do that going forward if it pleases the chair, if she wants to form a committee to do that. However, this is a tax credit project that is under a time constraint. You don't get to redo this. I understand Commissioner Dorsey's feelings. Nothing stops you from litigating or doing other things that as a board down the road if you wish to do that. That's obviously in the purview of that. But however, I think from a standpoint of the need for affordable housing and the need for this project to get done, this community desperately needs units. And if it's an issue of things that have been going on for 3 to 5 years or what have you, or documents that weren't provided months and months ago, we can work through that process. But as I said, this community needs affordable housing desperately. We can agree to disagree, and if the commissioner wishes to do that, that's absolutely within his purview to do. He should have the documents. I'll make sure whatever the documents that were previously requested. I know Rick had said that they did a presentation back in April. Chair, if you'd like another presentation, I think that maybe we can do that and set that up relatively quickly to happen either to that committee or to the board as a whole. But as far as this project goes, any mod rehab project will have a lot of these types of things. And that's typically why they would not normally go back to a board. They would either be done administratively because, again, the board already has approved the project budget. So all of that was already done. So to bring this back again, and as Rick said, in a mod rehab project, these will not be the first change orders or the last. You're going to get these throughout the entire project because it is a mod rehab. It is not new construction. You're not building this yourself. The questions of the documents are honest from Commissioner Dorsey, and I absolutely, I would think that that information should be shared, should be provided. Rick, when they did the previous presentation or previous items in February, were the construction specs or to the prior board, were they given out, or I don't know how?
Yeah, when we closed this transaction November of 2021.
Oh, good Lord. Okay.
The board did a final approval either, my memory is October 2021 is when we, after HUD fully approved all the documents in the budget and the HMFA approved the documents in the budget, then it came to the board for a final approval of all the documents in the budget. And then that was approved, and that's what allowed us to move forward and close. Okay.
So, and Chair and Commissioner Dorsey, just so you know, typically, what's the contingency, Rick, the percentage here?
It's 10% in this.
So usually administratively, if you were in a budget like this on a mod rehab, when you got up to 7 or 8%, that's when the board would basically be informed, we're getting up to the cap now. These are the activities, these are the actions. But even then, the overages don't usually fall on the authority, right, Rick? They go to the
right. In this transaction, any overages in the budget are guaranteed in a guarantee that the board approved by our development partner. Michaels has to pay any overages.
So I'm not saying that that's not, money that should be thrown around, but you are going to have these types of things. So again, Chair, whatever your decision is, but to me, from a functional standpoint, because of the time constraints and because of just the need to have this, these affordable units completed and brought online, this seems to be something that's been going on for a long time. I'd be happy to work with Commissioner Dorsey to get him the documents he needs. And again, nothing stops the board from taking any other action down the road if they feel, they were harmed or otherwise, wrongfully treated.
SP?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt either of you, because we do have new board members. We've already been explained all of that the last time I asked these questions. And it's great that you explained the typical process, but outside of the typical process, we're being double charged. And then we're being asked to vote on it. That's clear and concise. We were being double charged on the items back in February that we rejected. And we've yet to get clarification on that. So I would ask all of my commissioners to vote down all of the change orders and not be double charged, and force them to bring us the right paperwork and make sure that we are fiscally responsible with this project. Spray foam in a crawl space is not stopping a project from moving forward, nor is that a surprise, nor is that an in-wall condition. The next installation, not a surprise either. I mean, we could roll them out, or we could do them one by one, replacing water mains. This wasn't in a developed project. That's ridiculous. The other one is removing lights because the builder decided to put an HVAC unit in a closet instead of where they were supposed to build it. Then they're given a change order to us to move the light and the switch because they decided to use a closet instead of the open space, and it's a change order to us. So there has to be some checks and balances, and there's neither checks nor balances. There's just willy-nilly with the funding. And they understand that there's contingent funding, and they also understand that as part of the developed project specs, those contingent funding were already accounted for under expected overages. Things like our surveillance system, as I understand it, are not in our base budget, but go in our contingent funding. So the moment that these additional extras that are not accounted for get eaten up, things like our surveillance are no longer funded. So that's of concern to me. What's in that contingency funding, and what are we spending money on instead of getting what we originally planned on getting? The residents do deserve quality housing, and we want to stay on timeline. However, we also want to make sure that we are being good partners and that they are being completely honest with us and making sure that the correct parties are responsible for what they're responsible for. I asked specifically in other meetings about the changes to the porches that were designed one way, and then the design didn't work out, and we were sent a change order to spend more money to do the porches a different way. If the engineer made a mistake, errors and omissions should take care of that, not the housing authority. And because it's in the budget and everything that's overage comes out of the split of the partnership later, just like when we had the water main not too long ago, and they said, oh, don't worry, it's only $63,000. We'll take that out of the split. When the project's rolling, then you'll just pay your part, we'll pay our part, but we'll take it out of the profit. It's not about the profit, it's about being fiscally responsible with the money, getting approvals, and not just the developer doing what they wanted. This
Chair?
is not the first time, and this is not the way any project should go.
Mr. Clark?
Chair, again, I'm sorry, just for a point of clarification, the housing authority has no monetary component. It's the project. I understand what Commissioner Dorsey is saying about the fiscal responsibility of the authority, but this budget was approved by both HMFA and HUD with the contingency in place. If it's a contingency discussion, Commissioner Dorsey absolutely has all the right in the world to that information. to make sure that he's able to make a decision on this. But I just want to make sure, again, clarity for everybody on the call, that this is, the housing authority is not writing checks for any of this, that this is a project expense going to the project with the partnership. Again, I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that, Chair.
Thank you. Rick, did you want to add anything to that? You on mute.
Got it. Just one note. All the change orders also, they have to receive approval from the investor who is in the partnership, who provides the tax credits, and the investor can ask for things. And since they're providing the money, they sort of get the change orders they want. And it has to also all be approved by the HMFA, who is the lender in the project. So you have an investor and a lender. We are a stopping point on the review, which is usually administrative. The money folks, the HMFA and the tax credit investor, which is Berkadia, sign off on these change orders because they're actually providing funding for the change orders.
Great. We talked about change orders back in February.
Mhm.
We had the builder in the meeting. We asked for specific backup data on these change orders. Those change orders have not been back to us, nor has the clarification, nor has the explanation, nor has the credit for the work that was to be done. Let's talk specifically about the ACM roofing that they charged us to remove an excessive amount, or were charged, however, an excessive amount, went through a pass-through contractor, and no credit was given for the original work that was to be done. Is that correct or incorrect?
That's incorrect. It's correct to one extent, but there's no change order. That change order is not approved. So a change order that's presented that we don't like and doesn't get approved, that's the good process. That's what you want to see. So there's a lot of change orders that have been discussed and that sit around in the change order log that we've asked for additional information. If they haven't provided the additional information, they're not getting funding for those change orders from the funding sources. So I would think that is what we want to see, is they provided a change order without the proper documentation. We said no, that change order wasn't funded. They may resubmit that at a later date with proper documentation. I don't know, but we haven't approved it. HMFA hasn't approved it. The tax credit investor hasn't approved it, and no funding's been released to the contractor on it.
Okay, so how do you feel about paying for spray foam when we haven't been credited for the original installation that was to be put in that space?
I would have to look at the full backup of this thing.
I mean, it's not the backup. I'm asking you hypothetical. How would you feel about paying for a new item and not being credited for the old item?
No, I think you get credited for the old item, and I think since the architect reviewed it, his opinion was that is the proper cost based on the whole thing.
His opinion was that the cost is relative to the current environment, and that there was need there for the work. Now we're glossing over everything is normal. Being shysted, if that's normal, then I'm appalled. Because that's what we're doing, that's what's happening here. So, I've said my piece. Anyone that wants to vote for that? The other
Okay.
ones? Listen.
Any other questions or comments? I will say, as I want to sort of repeat what Mr. Clark said, and that the change orders do not come out of our budget at all. And normally past projects, and I've been on a board doing past projects, any change orders have never come in front of the board. This is something new. And I thought it was a result of RED, or as we know, regulations and rules change all the time. So I thought it was something with that. Normally it doesn't come, but if I am going to move forward with the vote, I do support these change orders. Two things could often be right at the same time. I understand where Commissioner Dorsey is coming from. Going forward, I am going to form a committee where we could discuss a lot of these issues. I think when Rick gave his presentation some months ago, he was pretty clear and concise. this project and the approvals and vetting the vendors have occurred over the last several years. It has all been approved through HUD and all other experts. But going forward, it will definitely be a committee. The contract is going to move forward with these items anyway, because they really don't have to come in front of the board. And so in the future, we'll discuss everything through a committee. Commissioner Dorsey, I will have you on that committee. But most importantly, we need housing in Atlantic City, and we don't want to stop anything. The one thing I do disagree with Commissioner Dorsey on, and I know he's passionate about this, and I really respect his opinion, but we are not being double billed. This isn't a double, it's some things that may have changed along the way, and they are requesting a change order, but we indeed are not being double billed for anything. But I do respect Commissioner Dorsey's his passion and his commitment to the Housing Authority, but we definitely need housing and we don't want to hold anything up. And so I do support these change order resolutions. And if it's anyone else who would like to be on that committee, you could let me know. We could have up to 3 commissioners on that committee. So if 2 people agree to be on that committee, I will not be on the committee, but we'll see going forward. So we can move forward with the vote.
Thank you, Chair. This will be a roll call vote on resolution 9601. Commissioner Devenish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Commissioner Johnson? Okay.
Yes, I was muted. Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Tweedle
Yes.
and Chair Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. That resolution passes 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Next is resolution 9602, which is a resolution to approve a change order for spray foam installation for the rehabilitation of the Busby Homes Rental Assistance Demonstration Project and authorizing the interim executive director to execute the change order. May I have a motion?
Motion Tweedle.
Thank you. A
Second Johnson.
Thank you. The resolution is now open for discussion by the commissioners.
Repeat my sentiments and leave it there.
Thank you. We can move forward.
Thank you. Roll call vote on resolution 9602. Commissioner Devenish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
No.
Commissioner Johnson. Oh, Commissioner Johnson.
You forgetting?
Right.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
Commissioner and Chair Marshall.
Yes.
That passes 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Resolution 9603, which is a resolution approving a change order for installation escalation pre-notice to proceed for the rehabilitation of the Busby Homes Rental Assistance Demonstration Project and authorizing the interim executive director to execute the change order. May I have a motion?
Motion Tweedle.
Thank you. A second?
Devenish, second Devenish.
Thank you. Resolution is now on the floor for discussion.
Can I get some clarity on the pre-notice to proceed?
Rick,
Yeah. So there's a lot of escalation in material costs. So the bids came in before the contractor got a notice to start the work. So once he got approval to start the work and he goes back to the supplier, the prices of the materials have increased.
I got you. I had read it and forgot, and I'm reading now. And with the pre-notice got me a little, I want to make sure that I understood. So this is the upcharge for the increased cost of materials that happens as time passes in inflation.
Right.
correct.
On the current project of the current pre-planned installation though.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any further comments or discussion from the commissioners? If none, then resolution 9603 is ready for a roll call vote. Commissioner Devonish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
yes,
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
Chair Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. That resolution passes 5 in favor, none opposed. Next, resolution 9604, which is a resolution approving a change order to replace hot water mains for rehabilitation of the Busby Homes Rental Assistance Demonstration Project and authorizing the interim executive director to execute the change order. May I have a motion?
Motion Marshall.
Second, Tweedle.
Thank you. The resolution is open for commissioner discussion.
I speak.
Commissioner Dorsey.
Rick, can you speak to an explanation of what this is? Because the units receive their own individual water heater each as part of the pre-planned project. So what is a hot water main to be replaced when there were the hot water mains were being eliminated as a part of the project? All hot water was supplied underground from the boilers. So there's nothing to be replaced as they were all eliminated with the boilers.
So these units do not have individual hot water heaters. There's a hot water heater for each building now, which follows what the Housing Authority had done 4 or 5 years ago when they were having a problem with the boilers out there. So we have a hot water heater for each building. And the hot water mains are actually the mains that are feeding the units. It's not the old boiler system mains that come underground. It's in the crawl space, feeding all the lines. They're just deteriorating because they're too old.
So we're adding individual water heaters at the end of each row, which never existed before,
Correct.
which means they now need to be piped in from the water heater to that unit.
They were
Which shouldn't-
going, they were going to connect, the old boilers came up and connected. These is actually the hot water that's going into the units from underneath the crawl space. So that they were going to connect to that, and they're not connected. They have to replumb the whole thing now.
But they were never connected to that before. And there are a group of individual boilers that each boiler only services one unit. So this was all fresh piping that needed to be done anyway.
No, there's a boiler that's like, if a building's got 10 units, you have a boiler that services 10 units. And the boiler was going to connect to the old lines that fed to the units. Those old lines need to be replaced.
Okay. And that wasn't already in the pre-assessment that the lines were needed to be replaced?
It was not.
I want to say, Mr. Clark, could you briefly discuss how these are modifications or
Yes.
rehab?
Yeah, this is not a new construction. I know you guys are talking, Commissioner Dorsey and Rick are going back and forth about mains and other components. Because this is a mod rehab, when the specs are usually done on this, there's certain assumptions that are made, and you want to try to piggyback on any existing lines. So it would not be, uncommon to have somebody say, all right, we're going to try to use what's existing there. And when they do get to the point of using it, they either test out the lines or they're unable to basically cannibalize and use what's there. So they need to replace them. So again, mod rehab is very different than a new construction where you would have a building spec that says, we're building this building from the ground up and we're going to have all new water lines all over the place. And this is a case in point. So this is one of the units where you're going to create, a multi-unit boiler system that's going to have basically feeding the hot water to multiple units. I assume, Rick, when they originally did the scope, because they didn't open the walls, they didn't know the conditions of the lines that were there. So they knew that they assumed that maybe they could use the mains and the adjacent lines. And once they did get in there and open up items, they felt it would be better if they replaced them. And that's really why you have those types of contingencies.
Yeah, you're correct, Mr. Clark.
I understand that, except for I actually am in the building trade, and I understand that the copper pipe system is a 20, max 30-year product, and Busby Homes is a over 60-year-old product. So unless in the pre-assessment, they determined that the piping was replaced in less than 20 years from when the development's gonna happen, it should have already been assumed that those pipes needed to be replaced. Which is why I've asked about the pre-assessment a bunch of times, because I understand the engineering that should have went into it and the predeterminations that should have been made based on the planned obsolescence of the product.
So yeah, and that would be in that spec. So in
Which is
that
why I
original
asked-
spec that you asked. So Rick, when we get off, if you can, we can dig up that other spec that was given to the prior board, so Commissioner Dorsey can have that.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
If there's no further discussion, then resolution 9604 is ready for a roll call vote. Commissioner Devonish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
No,
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
Chair Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. That resolution passes, 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Next is resolution 9605, which is a resolution approving a change order for additional electrical work for the rehabilitation of the Busby Homes Rental Assistance Demonstration Project and authorizing the interim executive director to execute the change order. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Marshall.
Second Tweedle.
Thank you. The resolution is open for discussion.
can I speak?
Commissioner Dorsey?
This is the resolution I spoke about earlier. The builder decided to make a change. And then that change resulted in the dominoes of other changes being needed to be done. I didn't see the original changes come to us for request, as a builder wouldn't, as long as they're not incurring additional costs. But when they do trigger other additional costs, that's a concern. While this is a minimal cost, I did review the items and the charges, and they're nominal. It's one of the few that has the backup paperwork that shows us what they did and what they charged us, and the rates all look decent, but it just looks like the builder created this cost by a change that they made. And now the cost is, obviously there's an additional cost to the total developed project. And while I do understand that people feel like this is not our money, it is our money. It doesn't matter that they borrowed it. It doesn't matter that they got tax credits. It matters that that's all considered in part of the deal they made with us to get this project underway, and how they're going to be recouping that money. So had they needed to spend $10 million less, they'd be looking to recoup $10 million less. So it's not our money coming out of our pocket, but it is our money coming out of our pocket, because that additional money is money that the authority would have been utilizing for other services for our residents, instead of this tax abatement program, putting the money back into their coffers with their pass-throughs and, the absorbent charges that are there. So it is our money. And I hope no one says that again. It's the residents' money. I'm gonna be corrected.
Okay, any more questions or comments? All right, we can move forward with the vote.
Thank you. Resolution 9605 is ready for a roll call vote. Commissioner Devonish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
No,
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
Chair Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. That resolution passes, 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Next is resolution 9606. This is a resolution approving a change order for wood baseboard replacement for the rehabilitation of the Busby Homes Rental Assistance Demonstration Project and authorizing the interim executive director to execute the change order. May I have a motion?
Motion, Marshall.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second Tweedle.
Thank you. The resolution is open for discussion.
May I speak?
Commissioner Dorsey?
So, Rick, can you get us some background on this?
The original specs did not call for the replacement of the baseboard in the units. As with some of these change orders, this is a management and ownership thing that the baseboard, when they painted it and caulked it to try to make it look sufficient after you're redoing the rest of the unit, just doesn't look good enough. It's not what the management of the housing authority wanted. It's not what the residents wanted. It's not what the management of Michael's wanted. So, the request is let's replace it. Should that have been in the original specs? Maybe, but in a mod rehab, there's a lot of stuff moving parts. So to make these units look better, you need to replace the baseboard. And that's that. The builder would do it either way. They'd leave the old baseboard or not. So the builder, if they're being told to replace the baseboard, to be fair to the builder, they need to be paid for it.
Or were they told to replace the baseboard by?
Being told to replace the baseboard because Housing Authority Administrative Management and Michael's Administrative Management, after the residents looked at it, thought it was the best thing to do. And I agree with them.
Madam Chair, can I say something? When we did the tour, I seen the baseboards and I know I complained about them. There's nowhere in the world what I seen that day that we went that I would say that they should have left it just with the paint, scraping and painting that they were doing.
I agree with you, Commissioner Tweedle, and this is not about necessarily the baseboards. While some of them, it was just sloppy paint and something that could have been probably repaired. I'm not nitpicking on what could have been repaired versus replaced. However, I do want it on the record what exactly it is, because I'm one of the people that with you that toured and complained about the trim, and I just don't understand why it wasn't in the original plan. But that being said, that's $124,000 that specifically was not on the plan. So goes above and beyond the anticipated contingency. $2.6 million, take it to 2.7.2. And what happens? ACHA and TMO split that later on down the road. We end up paying for it. Why was it not planned? I don't know. I wasn't here. I did vote on the final resolution. That was the secondary step to get this project rolling. I was told all the backup was done and everything was done. And a little chagrined that I didn't get more documentation at that time now. But I just want to make sure that we're on the record with these things that are clearly above and beyond what was on contingency, clearly things that were needed and should have been assessed from the beginning, and clearly missed by a bunch of people, or at least looked over for some reason. And I'd like to know why.
Okay, we'll discuss and answer those questions in a committee meeting. We can move forward with the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Resolution 9606 is ready for a roll call vote. Commissioner Devonish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. That resolution passes 5 in favor, none opposed. Next resolution is 9607. This is a resolution recognizing the emergency health designation issued by the city and authorizing and approving the interlocal services agreement between the City of Atlantic City and the Housing Authority and Urban Redevelopment Agency of the City of Atlantic City, and all actions necessary to address the emergency designation. May I have a second? Or I'm sorry, may I have a motion?
Motion Tweedle.
Thank you. A second.
Johnson.
Thank you. The resolution is open for discussion.
Chair,
Yes.
whatever you want to go to the board and then have me talk whatever you want.
Yes, Mr. Clark, you can move, you can speak.
Okay, so I want to first recognize and thank the city for rolling up their sleeves to help the authority on some of these items. As you may know, the city's designation was issued. They have negotiated and proposed a contract which allows coverage for us to utilize their procured and bid trash component, as well as an exterminator service if needed. At this point, we are only utilizing the trash component through that process. We still have the exterminator option. I have Jerry Volpe, who's our QPA here, that can talk about extermination at this point and where we are with a contracted component through the QPA process. But I just want to say and thank both the city and HUD for moving quickly. They have both received and approved the agreement. The interlocal agreement is right now under use, so we're actually utilizing that trash component. And we're hopeful that the board will move forward with this action tonight, so that that is allowable and we can continue to move forward. As the board may know, and I think we have already previously discussed, the authority is out of contract with its trash removal components. So this allows us now to continue to get that service until it can be properly bid and procured. And Chair, if I can ask Jerry to talk a little bit about the extermination and where we are with the status of those contracts from services, I'd appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay, briefly, we have moved post haste upon the declaration of the emergency by the interim director and have procured a significant number of various vendors to come in, including and not limited to landscaping, renovation and emergency repair work, doors that are broken, in various units that are in dire need of rehab based on the emergent situation. In addition to that, we've contacted an exterminating group who has responded and has addressed a multitude of issues. As recent as today, we had the vendor on site, and when they were responding to various units, they noted that there were several adjacent and ancillary units that had significant bed bug and other issues that needed to be addressed. They immediately contacted us. We immediately gave them approval to do the work that needed to be done. As there's been a significant number of other vendors that have been brought in on an emergent basis, and Interim Director Clark, myself, the council have been in constant communication over the last 90 days, today being no exception. It's just an ongoing issue. We're procuring all of these goods and services on an emergent basis. Hopefully this evening, the board will ratify the actions taken by interim director. I'm operating as a QPA under the emergency declaration of the chief executive, which is the interim director. And I'll take any questions that you have on it.
And Chair, also just as a point of order, we will need that special meeting to discuss contract matters, and I know you were planning on making that as a later component. So there are some things we do need to discuss underneath that meeting.
And I would second that request. We've had some conversations about that, some of us, and there's, of course, dire need to update the various concerns that I have attempting to get the work done, and the related issues that I'm facing trying to get the work done. Very, very difficult under the circumstances. Very difficult. Underscored exclamation point.
And Chair, if I could just say, we have open lines with HUD now, which I'm very happy about. They are very supportive of what we're doing pretty much on a daily basis. We speak with them, and they have supported all of the activities necessary to address both the emergency situation and any of the other contract components through the QPA process until we can remediate all of these activities. I anticipate, a 60-day period until we can, pretty much have everything addressed. And during that time frame, we will continue to work with HUD on going through the RFPs and getting the remainder of those approved for our issuance, so we can.
Yeah, and just to echo what John is saying, I think if the committee meets and we brief the committee on the day-to-day issues that are taking place, it will shed tremendous light on why things are happening the way that they are happening.
Okay, any questions from the commissioners? Okay, I definitely support this resolution, and I appreciate the city jumping in to assist us. I see our representative, Chris Brown, is also on the line, and I'm pretty sure he had a hand in that and assisting us with state and HUD. It's unfortunate that we had to go that route, but we did, and everything is working out great between the city, the state, and HUD. So this is definitely, the Housing Authority is moving forward in a positive direction, having others involved. So we could call the vote. Sure, a commissioner? Was that a commissioner?
Yes.
Okay, Dorsey?
So, just like to say thank you to John and Jerry and the chairwoman, Councilor Manfredi. I'm sure you're involved as well. This interlocal services agreement is critical to our survival. We were literally on our deathbed, and had it not been for the relationships with local government, relationships with contractors and vendors that are already approved through the state and through other public entities, we would not have been able to get these services handled in an expeditious manner. So I personally appreciate everyone and all the work that they've done and the hours, the tireless hours that they put in to get to this point. It's unfortunate that the federal government sat on our head until our local government declared an emergency. But we are where we are now, and hopefully we're moving forward. And I look forward to transitioning from those interlocals back to traditional vendors as we're able to get the federal government to actually approve us to send out bid packages and accept vendors and pay our bills and all these other things that they've been holding us from doing, which are a big reason of why we were literally in crisis. People
Commissioner, we
living-
have a significant number of solicitations that we've been working on for the last number of days, months, I should say. And we do have a green light to get those packages tendered for OSAR Step 1 approval. There's multiple steps involved. We're rewriting everything, we're recreating everything, we're creating files, the entire procurement function. So just as a positive note, there's several of them getting ready to be submitted and within days. And hopefully we'll be getting approval while we're operating on an emergent basis. We're also going to start the solicitation process for a multitude of commodities.
I would appreciate that. And I hope that we get a chance to look into the existing items that are on hold, repairs of boilers and buildings and elevators, and make sure that we.
Not to interrupt you, but all of the above. As recent as today, there were a significant number of communiques with elevator vendors, with exterminators, with repair vendors, with landscapers, with boiler renovations and work that is ongoing. You may have noticed that we have a vendor on site the last several days, with tomorrow being a holiday. We have subcontractors there. They'll be back next week. There's parts have been ordered. It's significant, by the way. The boiler repair work is significant, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
What is the,
I meant to, I'm sorry, Commissioner Dorsey, Mr. Clark, I forgot to ask, and I know we're in the middle of passing a resolution, but at the end, if you could give us, once we get through the resolutions, an update on the boilers and the situation happening at Stanley. I forgot to ask you to do that during your report,
Yeah, no
so.
problem. Actually, Jerry literally just spoke to the, so I would do it in conjunction with Jerry. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, the vendor was on the phone with me. That's why I blacked out the screen a few times. I mean, literally, it's
Wow.
as we're speaking.
But yeah,
Okay.
Chair, no problem. We'll do that at the end.
Okay, thank you.
all right, so like I said, I just want to say thanks to all the work that's been done, we've obviously had a bunch of meetings about this stuff and you guys have been working hard and everything is relationships. And I'm glad that we now have people with those relationships that allow us to move this authority forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Dorsey. Call the vote?
Thank you, Chair. Resolution 9607, roll call vote, Commissioner Devonish.
I think that was 9608.
Yes.
Was that resolution 9608 that we're on?
I think I have it as 7 on the agenda.
Yes, 7.
Okay, all right,
you.
sorry. Okay.
I'm sorry, and Commissioner Devonish was a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
and Chair Marshall.
Yes,
Thank you. That resolution passes 5 in favor, none opposed. The next resolution, 9608, is a resolution ratifying and approving emergency contractors and actions for services between August 24th, 2022 and November 3rd, 2022. May I have a motion?
Motion Tweedle.
Second,
Thank you. The resolution is open for discussion.
Chair, if I could, for a clarification.
yes, Mr. Clark.
So I know this is a little similar language, however, this is for the period of time where we were, the authority was essentially on contract and had sewer line breaks, water line breaks, boiler issues, so on and so on. So this covers contracts that were during that period of time and any emergencies that needed to take place during that time. So I know it's similar language from the previous resolution, but this is for the specific items during that period.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. Is there any other questions or comment? Okay, we could call the vote.
Thank you. Roll call vote for resolution 9608. Commissioner Devonish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
Chair Marshall.
Yes,
Thank you. That passes 5 in favor, none opposed. Resolution 9609 is a resolution authorizing a collective bargaining agreement with AFSCME Council number 63 for the period of April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2024. May I have a motion?
Motion Tweedle.
Second,
Thank you. Motion or the resolution is open for discussion.
Mr. Clark.
Or Joe, you want to, whatever's easier, Chair.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Clark. This is the update to the collective bargaining agreement that we previously had in effect with ASME. And as Rich indicated, it runs for the period of April 1st through March 31, 2024. Daryl Howard of my office is here. He worked on this matter with Mr. Clark and can provide you with a short summary of the updates to the CBA.
Chair?
Yes, Mr. Clark.
Again, I don't know if Darrell wants to speak, but I could just basically say, I want to thank the members of this union for their patience. Those dates are not incorrect. This is something that apparently was on the table and in discussions since April of 2021. The staff continued to work through that negotiation process and had fair and open discussions throughout and patiently waited. We appreciate them doing that. We're asking the board to ratify this evening, so we can continue to move forward. And I believe, I believe that they will. But again, I just want to recognize and thank the staff for their hard work and patience during this process.
Okay, great. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we could call the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Resolution 9609, roll call vote. Commissioner Devonish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes,
Chair Marshall.
Yes.
That resolution passes 5 in favor, none opposed. Next item, Resolution 9610, which is a resolution approving and authorizing the collective bargaining agreements with CWA Local 1038 for the period of April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2024. May I have?
Motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
second Tweedle.
Thank you. Open for discussion.
Mr. Clark?
I'll
Mr.
defer to,
Manfred?
I'll defer to the special counsel.
Thank you, everyone. This is a mirror resolution to the prior one, except it is with CWA Local 1038 for the same period of time.
And again, Chair,
Mr. Clark?
just a point of order, the staff under this union, same thing. This is not a typo. It is April 2021 for the period. And I want to thank them for continuing to work, continuing to do their job to the best of their ability while the negotiations continued. And I'm hopeful that the board will consider this action and ratify it tonight.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Dorsey?
quick clarification. This is the communication workers, correct? Which employees are they? The last one was the maintenance people, and this one comes up as Communication Workers Association. So which, I don't understand which employees they are though.
Yeah, Daryl, do you want the breakdown? Because it's actually 3 different components.
Yes,
Daryl?
I can pull up the list. In each agreement on the last page, there is a schedule of job titles and salary ranges. So some of the jobs that are in these unions or in these bargaining units would be like the property managers, some of the accounting staff.
The white collar, right?
Yeah, I think some of the maintenance employees are in here as well. The supervising maintenance repair job title, the social workers. It's a wide variety of staff. It's essentially all of the union employees who aren't the job titles covered by AFSCME and not the security guards, if that makes sense. It's a pretty wide variety of job titles, which is why each agreement has the listing of titles that are covered.
Yeah, okay. It was the CWA that I was unclear on.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Mr. Clark, I'm going to add to the Personnel Committee with Dr. Devonish and Commissioner Johnson. If you could come up with a time frame to begin negotiations. These expire in March of 2024. 2023 is here. So we probably want to start coming up with a time frame to start the negotiations, which will probably need to start during the summer with Mr. Manfredi as well. So you can schedule that with Chair Dr. Devonish. Commissioner.
Yeah, Chair. So baked into the agreements is a 6-month discussion period. So it's 6 months prior to the end of the term of the contract. You have to begin negotiation discussions. I'll cover that with the chair of the subcommittee.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we could call the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Resolution 9610, roll call vote. Commissioner Devonish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Commissioner Tweedle, you on mute.
Yes,
Thank you. And Chair Marshall.
Yes. And congratulations to all the staff with having this contract finalized too.
Thank you. That resolution passes 5 in favor, none opposed. Resolution 9611 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of the Capital Fund Program for federal fiscal year 2022, thereby approving the annual statement / budget Form HUD 50075.1 for the 2022 CFP grant and certifying that all work items / DLIs included in the annual statement / budget are from the most recent 5-year action plan with approval by HUD.
So moved.
Just flows off the tongue. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And second?
Second Devonish.
Thank you. It is open for discussion.
Mr. Clark?
Sure, Chair, just a point of order. This is for the 2022 capital funds. Items that are in this grant have to be included in your 5-year plan. So this is the board's recognition of that fund. This gives funds to the authority to have access for capital improvements as well as some operating funds. In addition to this, the authority will be going in to do some budget revisions on an administrative basis for the 2021 and 2020 capital funds to move some administrative money over to help offset some of the costs of the emergency items. But this is for the 2022 grant and approval of that consideration. All items have to be within the 5-year plan, and these items are.
Commissioner Dorsey?
Mr. Clark, could, we have a lot of public listening. Could you give us a quick 30-second tidbit on what's allowable in our capital fund?
Capital funds are usually major improvements to properties, facilities relating to the AMPS. They're basically at the project level. So these would be roof repairs, elevator repairs, major renovations and remodelings, boiler repairs, a lot of the items that relate to the capital improvements of a certain property. They cannot be taken or used in other components. And there's certain administrative restrictions and caps on funds that you can use for administrative activities. But the majority of these funds basically are set for expenditure at the project level.
And could you let them know what that amount was that in this one?
I believe it's somewhere in the area. Denise, are you on still? It's about 2 million-ish.
Okay.
In that area. I can get you a specific amount. I don't have the full agenda in front of me, but yeah.
I mean, we have the backup documentation, but just for public consumption, that we have about $2 million approved to
Correct. It's
start fixing the
substantial.
buildings.
It is substantial.
nature.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. We could call the vote.
Thank you. Roll call vote on resolution 9611. Commissioner Devonish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Did she disappear?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Did
Thank
you hear
you.
me? Oh,
yes. Chair Marshall.
Yes.
That resolution passes 5 in favor, none opposed. Resolution 9612 is a resolution approving and adopting the 2023 HUD fair market rents for use in the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. May I have a motion and second?
So
Motion,
Motion.
Marshall.
second Tweedle.
Thank you. Discussion.
Chair?
Mr. Clark?
Sure, if I can. As you may know, every year HUD issues fair market rents. They were issued again. There was a 13% increase this year in the amounts. These are available for use in the voucher program. So this is the adoption of that fair market rent utilization for the Section 8 program. And then I'll talk about, if you want me to talk about the other resolution now, Chair, or just wait till the other resolution opens.
You could discuss that now as well.
Okay, so currently your payment standards for your Section 8 voucher program are 95% of the FMR, meaning that if you get $1 to go lease a unit, you can only spend up to 95 cents of that dollar. That's your current program. We know the challenges people are experiencing. The market is completely gone over the end. So what this next resolution is a sister resolution to this one, allows the new voucher amounts that are being approved tonight, hopefully through this resolution, to go up to 110% of the FMR. Housing authorities have the ability to do that and have to do that in a case for a period of time before asking to go up to 120%, which is really where I think the market is at this point for conditions of units of an affordable and acceptable manner. But at least this is a huge benefit to clients who will have vouchers and who are looking for housing to be able to go up to that 110% amount in the next resolution. But before you do that, you have to adopt the fair market rents, which are currently being presented through this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, for that explanation. Any other questions? Okay, we could call the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Resolution 9612, roll call vote. Commissioner Devenish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
and Chair Marshall.
Yes.
Motion passes, resolution passes, 5 in favor, none opposed. Next is Resolution 9613. This is a resolution approving and adopting the revised payment standard to 110% of the FMR, fair market rents, for the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Open for discussion.
We could call the vote.
Thank you. Roll call vote on Resolution 9613. Commissioner Devenish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
and Chair Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes 5 in favor, none opposed. Resolution 9614 is a resolution ratifying and approving the attached pre-check rating report and disbursements of bills thereof for the months of August and September 2022. I have a motion.
Motion Tweedle.
Second.
Resolution is open for discussion.
No questions.
See,
I'm glad that there's a bills list.
Let's pay the bills, please, Chair.
Yes.
I got a question. Are we actually going to be allowed to pay our bills?
Yeah, these items actually are already reviewed and approved.
That was hyperbole.
Okay, sorry. Thanks, Chair.
Ready for a roll call vote on Resolution 9614. Commissioner Devenish,
Approved. Yes, sorry.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
and Chair Marshall.
Yes.
That has passed, 5 in favor, none opposed. Resolution 9615 is a resolution ratifying and approving the attached pre-check rating report and disbursements of bills thereof for the month of October 2022. May I have a motion?
Motion
Motion
Tweedle.
Marshall.
Second Tweedle.
Thank you. Open for discussion.
Another smile, another happy moment. That's all.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Roll call vote on Resolution 9615. Commissioner Devenish,
Abstain.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
Chair Marshall.
Yes.
That resolution passes, 4 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstention. That concludes item 9 resolutions. Item 10, discussion of items for the good and welfare.
Yes, there are 2 items, Mr. Clark. One is the update on Stanley and the boilers. And then commissioners, we have to have a special meeting, and I will ask Mr. Clark to discuss that, or Mr. Manfredi to go over some possible dates.
Sure. Chair, if it pleases the board, as you know, Stanley has 3 boilers right now. We have 1 boiler operating there. The other two boilers are currently under repair and offline. We're going to continue to operate the one boiler until we can get the other two components, repaired and up and running. Jerry, I don't know if Jerry has any more detail. There are two contractors literally working on them as we speak, and on an ongoing basis, they're going to continue to do that work. The good news is that the other boilers in the other buildings are basically operable and working. That does not mean they don't need service. So once the boiler companies complete getting Stanley's functioning and operating and winter ready, they will then be moving to the other boiler systems and the other heating units in the other buildings to have them briefly taken offline, service them, make sure they're in operable positions to make it through the winter, and so on. We do have some. Go ahead, Jerry.
Just to supplement and not to interrupt you, I apologize about that. Right off the press, this is like literally 30 seconds old. The gas lines are all up. Stoves have all been reconnected, and that we were very concerned about getting that done as soon as possible. He just told me on the phone moments ago that the gas lines at the one building at Stanley are all up, running, and functional. That's literally just happened. In terms of the boilers, you stated exactly where we are. When they're finished at Stanley, they're going over to Altman, where there's some issues which we're already aware of. And we're optimistic by the middle to the end of next week, we will have all of the boilers up, functioning, and running at Stanley. Let me qualify that, at Stanley.
Chair, just also a point of order. As you know, and as it's been basically historic, I guess, at Stanley, as you online these systems, you have underground breaks and voids in some of the crawl spaces and some of the other components. We're expecting that as these systems power up to their maximum ability and capacity. That's usually, a December problem. Our goal right now, we're going to try to power these up and recognize those issues now before we have sub-zero temperatures, pretty much on a steady basis. That may be putting heat into some units, when you have it sort of some of these days here. But just so everyone understands, we're doing this, as we bring these online to try to identify any of the underground challenges that are ongoing or that may have been going on for some time, that so they can be repaired.
And one of the things that we're doing, John and I haven't had a chance to talk about it, but it just happened about an hour ago. In another one of my housing authorities, we're bringing in temporary boilers while we're servicing the other boilers, and we're looking at doing that here as well, so that we have multiple buildings and multiple properties, in the event we need to take one of the units out and the other units are not ready to go, we will have temporary boiler system in place that we may look to own for emergencies like this. And if we could take it out of capital, of course, that's the plan. So we're looking at that as well. I'm doing that at another one of my housing authorities. Of course, we planned for all of that. And we put that in our bid spec and we solicited it that way. But this now is not what we planned for. This is an emergent situation which we're operating under. And just for the benefit of everybody that's online, the one boiler that is functional is in dire need of repair. It's leaking, it's got all kinds of issues. So it's running at like 110% of capacity, while it's only functioning at maybe 70 or 80%. So it's trying to push through heat to the whole building, hot water. The boiler does both hot water and heat. And what's happening is those apartments that are very close to the boiler are getting plenty of hot water and plenty of heat. And the people that are farthest away are not getting either. So that's the reason. You need 2 of the 3 boilers to be operating. And we have one that's trying to cover the whole building. And it just isn't designed to do that. And that's why you're having all of the ancillary related issues.
And Chair, just so you know, and that would be the benefit for us to bring what many people call temporary, but I call standby boiler.
Correct.
That is essentially a 2-hour connection and, you're up and running. We're having these issues now in November when it was 65 degrees today or whatever it was, 62. We don't want to have this discussion in January when it's 10. So my goal really is to get the boilers, functioning, get them up and running under this emergency designation. And then, as Jerry said, go out and either piggyback on a bid through the state component to get a standby that we can put in place and leave in place. It's my understanding that Stanley has had challenges, some serious challenges for heat and hot water, and had some really bad times in 2019 or 18, where, it was the middle of the winter and people didn't have heat. I do not want that to happen. I'm not going to let that happen. So my hope is that, the board and the authority will continue to support us getting those components. I've already had sort of those outside discussions with HUD about the need for these types of items. And I believe that, as we have open lines of communication now, we should be asking for that. And we will.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Dorsey.
So we have the ability to add a standby heater that is, you're saying, basically like a 2-hour connection, and where you have the ability to order this. And how do we find this out? And what's that lead time?
I could jump in, John.
Okay, because this is the first I've heard of it, and I've been asking questions like this for a year, so I'm curious.
Okay, so one of the things, I hate to use this expression, but I use it all the time. Failure to plan on your part, not you, and I'm just saying in general, failure to plan on your part does not constitute a quote unquote emergency on my part. So in the normal course, we get these architects and engineers when they do the facilities assessment to come in and evaluate, tell us what the needs are. And in one of my housing authorities that happened, and they told us, hey, your boiler needs to be replaced. We had 2 of them, not 3. Both of them were malfunctioning. So we put into the spec the ability to bring in temporary standby, better word. It kind of works like a standby generator, but you have to be able to procure it. Of course, we're struggling right now with supply chain issues. So that was delayed at this other housing authority. And my understanding is that standby for my other place is coming in the next couple of weeks while they do the boiler repair work that needs to be done. So we're now looking at doing that here as well. Unfortunately, we had to have them jump in immediately and do the repair work and use the existing boiler that is leaking and has all kinds of other issues. The burner assemblies need to be updated and replaced. There's a bunch of technical stuff that I don't want to get into right now, but all of that is being addressed immediately. Can we go out and buy a standby boiler tomorrow morning? No, they don't have them. They're not sitting on a shelf. They're not shelf ready. So I'm already talking to the vendor and the supplier that I bought one for at another facility to see if we could piggyback off of that contract, and or they're not going to keep it because they've already decided that they want to use they're adding a 3rd boiler. So we may have one ready to go. And if we could piggyback off of that and save some money and it becomes a double win, why not? And that's what we're looking at.
Will we
And
able to
Chair,
take-
just
will
Yeah,
we able
Chris.
to take that and use that on other properties like Shore Park or Jeffries and other places? So we'll be able
Yes.
to, we'll be able
Yes,
to
the
move
answer-
that. So if we order one and then they're willing to sell us theirs, then we'll be able to have 2 standbys.
But the answer is these are portable units and they could be, they could be transported and moved and then tied in. Of course, there's going to be plumbing work that's going to have to be done to allow for that hasty, quick 2-hour connection. It's not something where you just pull it up and plug it in. It's got to be piped. It's got to be so many feet away from the building because of the carbon monoxide. I mean, there's a whole bunch of code issues that have to be worked, and there's some engineering work that has to be done with it as well. But if we plan for that, why not? It's a great idea. You have it as a backup ability if you need to connect down the road with relative ease. You bring in a plumber and boiler firm and say, okay, you piped it, to allow for this, and you capped it, come in, run some piping, extend it outside, connect it and go, and that takes a couple of hours.
So we'd be able to, this is natural gas, and we'd be able to work on with our, probably whatever funding, capital, whatever, basically put this quick connect stub out at our building so that in an emergency, we could bring it over and have it hooked up to an existing stub out that is waiting for us, and we'd have a standby for all our buildings.
That is the plan. At my other housing authority that I'm doing it, we decided we weren't sure if we were going to go natural gas or we were going to go diesel. So we went back and forth on it, and we wanted the capability to have either or. And we did the quick connect with the gas lines, and we had to put the extension out, all of the above. So the short answer to your question is it's doable. Yes.
Chair,
Thank you for
Yes,
that.
Clark.
just a point of clarification for the Commissioner Dorsey. Commissioner, so the issue in these cases aren't necessarily the unit, it's the buffering, safety and security items that have to go with it. Because
Correct.
now you're talking about an external component, gas, gigantic machine. So
Fencing you have to put around it, fire.
there's all buffering, safety, fencing, like there's a whole like listing of things you have to have. So yeah,
And these units are big. They're very large.
Yeah, they're not-
units.
I get it,
Yeah,
I
they're-
get it.
It's not like
Yeah.
a home boiler.
It's like a shed.
it's more like a small tractor trailer.
Yeah, I was going to say it's bigger than a shed.
Yeah. And again, it's not a permanent solution. These would be, temporary so that if you do need to piggyback, a unit. Stanley's a lot. I don't know if any board members have been out there, but these are large 3-boiler system doing 400 plus units. It is,
Yeah.
those things work, and you do need 3 to run them. So
I grew up in Busby. They look like a train engine.
yes.
And
Chair, you want me to talk about some dates for the special meeting? Or you want me to send them out to the board and get the boards?
You could send them out, but my question, and I will reach out to each commissioner. What is the soonest you will be available?
Mr. Manfredi? Well, I think, first the report. So Chair, if you recall, you wanted the report to go to the Personnel Committee, Subcommittee first. We
Yes.
reported to them. So I would think, Mr. Manfredi, I don't know, I kind of had a brief conversation. We're looking at maybe the first week in December-ish to be able to do that and get it out to the boards committee, maybe by the 9th. I know we have an early meeting in December. There's an early board meeting in December, Chair. I believe it's on the 8th. If I'm looking at my calendar correctly, Beth Ann, is that right? Yes, okay. So maybe if we can get it out, Chair, our goal would be to get it out to that committee prior to that meeting. And then maybe have a meeting of the entire committee or do a special meeting. We could probably maybe even do a special meeting at that meeting and go into closed session at that meeting, if it pleases the board, rather than have a separate meeting date. Or would you prefer a separate meeting date? I know it's the holidays and everything, so I don't want to double up on stuff if we don't have to.
Okay.
Or the committee can decide, Chair, if you would like the committee, if you want us to give the report to the committee, go through that and then let the committee communicate with you.
I think that's a good idea. That's a better idea. Mr. Manfredi?
I agree, Chair, with that. It'll give us more flexibility and more efficiently gets a special meeting set up with the board. I think that would be better to go through the committee
Okay, perfect.
and then set a date.
Okay, that sounds great. And Mr. Clark, you'll reach out to Commissioner Devonish tomorrow and Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. Okay, great. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else? No? Okay.
Can I ask a question or two?
Yes, Commissioner Dorsey?
Can we get a quick update on the exterior stuff at Stanley? That the city did come out and take care of, and how everything is over there?
Sure, that's actually the landscaper. That's not the city. Jerry?
I thought
Yeah,
I thought
I can give you an
DPW
update.
was gonna come out and do it. That's why I thought it was the city.
I can give you an update real quick. We brought in an emergency landscaper. Again, I don't want to belabor the discussion, but there was a lot of ancillary issues created that didn't need to be created. But at the end of the day, the emergency contractor was told to come in, remove the rubbish, take everything that is in the yards and in the open fields, get it into our dumpsters, just clean it up, go through and do a once over, get as much of that stuff out of there as possible, and then go back and do the landscaping and cut the lawns, trim the bushes, do the weed whacking. I've looked at literally hundreds of pictures in the last 3 days, as did John. And there's been a lot of communications back and forth. They didn't do what they're supposed to. They did do, we engaged them. They did exactly what we told them to do. And it's a multi-step process, and it's ongoing and is not complete. It will be taking place over the next several weeks, but they're in there on an emergent basis addressing it all. And they're going from property to property to property. And again, when we have the briefing with the committee, I would be very happy to elaborate on these ancillary issues that have come up.
Pardon me if I'm a bit obtuse, but I believe we were told in previous meetings that we could not get a contractor out there to do this work. How did we manage to get somebody out there?
Well,
Short notice.
Not very simple. Once the interim director declared the emergency, which the city did and then he did, that gave me authorization as your qualified purchasing agent to circumvent the rules and go out and procure without regard to a public solicitation, without regard to public bidding, and address the emergent issue. So we had a significant number of items that were creating a quote unquote health and public safety issue. And keep in mind that public exigency in New Jersey or emergency is defined as something that adversely impacts the public health, safety, and welfare of its citizenry, its residents in this instance. So under that umbrella, I am authorized immediately upon the declaration to go out and retain various vendors. And I did. And I did so post haste. And, you know, we did what we had to do under the emergent declaration. Now, while that's taking place, we're building these solicitations, which, by the way, they're substantive. If I showed you a packet, they're literally somewhere between 70 and 100 pages long. And that's not just a specification. That's the comparative price analysis, the independent cost estimates, the pool of potential bidders, the specifications, the boilerplate, all of those documents, an OSAR checkoff list. There's a significant number of documents. So we're doing it in parallel or in tandem, I should say, that we are getting ready to do the solicitations for these services. And I didn't use any local vendors, by the way, because I just wanted to get this done, and I wanted to get it done quickly, and I had to bring out of the area vendors. So that's how we did it. Now, once we do it in a public forum, of course, the local bidders are more than welcome to participate. But when you call the local vendors, again, I'll discuss this ad nauseum at your committee meeting. There's reasons why we didn't do what we did.
Okay, so I understand that it's an emergent matter, but there are still checks and balances on what they charge us and for their services, correct? And
well, the prices, we're looking at the prices, and of course we're paying more, but we're paying, I shouldn't say we're paying more. We're paying based upon emergency response, and we needed to get vendors out there immediately. I mean, when the boilers went down and there was no hot water, there's no time. You have to get them in. But I'm happy to tell you that the numbers that we're seeing are reasonable from my perspective. And that's something that, you know, John and I have talked about to make certain that we're not just bringing vendors in with a blank check. That's not, you know, we're sensitive. I'll speak for both of us. We're extremely sensitive to who we're employed by, and that is the Atlantic City Housing Authority. And even though it's public funds, we have to be mindful that we have limited resources and we need to do what's best for the residents. Same thing with the pest control. This pest control I've used at multiple housing authorities in North Jersey and Central Jersey, and I brought them in here, and they're excellent. And the case in point, today, they called me and said, hey, you've got 6 units that are adjacent to these units that you've identified. And if we just treat for bed bugs in these apartments, you're gonna have reinfestation. So while we're here, do you want us to tackle the others? And the answer is absolutely, get it done. So we're doing what needs to be done, again, under the emergent declaration and in moving forward.
And also, just Chair, as a point of order, and the bed bug company is a perfect example. You need a company large enough to come and fix the problem. So, Jerry, as a qualified purchasing agent and a certified, I don't even know what your acronyms after your name, Jerry, are, but whatever. Cost price is always a condition we take into consideration, but both quality and response is the priority right now. So we
and then when you also have vendors, existing vendors who won't come because they haven't been paid for very long periods of time, it's a problem. So
or may have had bad experiences with the authority years ago that they're not interested. And those are some of the challenges that we'll talk about, in the closed session in more detail with the board about contracting and other things.
One more question for Jerry. So with this bills paid list, is this gonna bring us up to date with our vendors that aren't paid and our bills that are outstanding?
Oh, no, I'll defer to John on that, but I'll say.
I can answer that.
Definitely not.
So the quick answer, Commissioner, is no, there's still some bills that we are discussing with HUD, but we are discussing. So we have open lines of communication that they have to go through their maturations. For the current emergency vendors, yes, they will get paid, we'll issue checks. It's an emergent situation. That is absolutely protocol for a designation of this type. However, HUD has and should have some questions about some previous payments on vendors, and they'll express those, and we'll have those discussions where they lead. We'll see. But
by the way,
no, not everyone has been paid.
And by the way, it's very important to note, I just want to go back for 1 second to assure the board, we're doing this at comparable rates that I'm seeing at some of the other public entities that I work at. So we're making certain, and we're beating them up over the head, to be candid with you, saying, look, there's opportunity for bidding down here. We'd like to bring you in and invite you to bid on future work, but we need you to come in at prices that we're seeing at some of the other public entities. And that's important to note. So I wanted to make sure I added that. In terms of vendors being paid, listen, there's emails I get every single day that I'm forwarding over. It's not a procurement matter, it's a finance matter. And if these bills are open and they're outstanding, then they need to be followed up with. The problem I'm having, and I don't want to go into too much detail. I'll wait until we have the briefing with the committee, because there's a lot more that needs to be said. And I'd rather do it with the committee than do it at this forum, if that's okay.
Are we talking about those that predate this 90-day period or the 180-day period? Because we've discussed this in meetings before, and we've been told that all of our bills were paid and up to date. And now we're submitting here 90 days worth of bills. So if you're telling me that bills predate the last 90 days, then I have new questions as to why representations were made in other board meetings that our bills were paid and up to date. And we're now being told that what sounds like bills prior to Mr. Clark, your commission and Jerry, I mean, you're telling me now the bills are predating your tenure here, and we've been told that the bills were up to date as early as the month before your tenure. So I'm concerned about this. I hope we can get a report at our next board meeting about all of those bills that are predating your tenure here and why HUD hasn't paid them. And all the backup documentation on when they were submitted and how they were submitted and the reasons behind why our vendors aren't paid, because I came onto this board and one of the first things I said is if we can't get vendors, we're probably not paying them. So I've asked this question multiple times, and to hear now that our bills weren't paid and they're going back, who knows how far, is obviously a concern to us, because this is not only, you know, our authority and our people, but this is our reputation. And as a contractor, I know how much the upcharge is when you don't pay your bills, when you don't pay them on time, and when even I, as a contractor, don't take work from certain entities because work is not going to get paid for in time, and I don't even want to deal with it.
There is so
So-
much more I want to say, but I'll defer until the committee meets.
I agree 100%, Commissioner, by the way. Yes.
And I agree as well. So, and I speak for all of your professionals that are on this call today. Trust me, when you're briefed, you'll understand.
Mr. Manfredi, is it anything you wanted to add?
No, Chair, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Did we cover everything? It is 6:30, 2 hours in. I believe we covered everything.
It was fast.
I would say something smart, but you have on a Cowboys hoodie, so.
Oh, no.
All right, I believe that is it. Okay, we can adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
And second,
Second, Marshall.
and all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any?
Good night,
opposed?
everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thank you all. Thank you,
Good night,
guys. Bye
everyone.
now.
Have a
Good night,
good
everyone.
evening.
Thank you for your work.
Take care.
Good night.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.